the one that got away. My girlfriend's white moonlight just moved back to the States. He has terminal cancer, and he's back to make amends before time runs out. Because of that, my girlfriend hid the fact that we were even dating and let him move into her place. When I first met Elena, she was already a self-made success. I'm 7 years younger than her, and she was the one who pursued me. Before she officially asked me out, she was open about her past relationships. When she talked about her high school sweethearts or her more recent exes, her tone was casual, almost indifferent. But when she mentioned Julian, her college best friend, she went quiet for a long time. She had been head over heels for him, but when she finally confessed her feelings, he rejected her. It ended badly. After graduation, Julian moved abroad and she stayed behind. It took her 5 years to truly get over him. She told me back then that they weren't actually compatible and that it never would have worked out anyway. She said the years she spent pining for him were more about regret and ego than anything else. She just couldn't accept that such a close friendship had ended in total silence. I was moved by her honesty and her persistence in winning me over, so I said yes. Now we both live and work in New York City. The difference is she owns her apartment while I'm still renting. New York is massive, and our offices are in different boroughs. From Monday to Friday, we stay at our own places, though we're always on FaceTime. On Friday nights, either she comes to my place or I go to hers, and we spend the weekend together. Despite the age gap, we've always been a perfect match. Today is Friday, and it's her turn to come over. She texted me in the afternoon, saying she was grabbing drinks with some old college friends and would be over late. I've met her friends before. Usually, Elena asks if I want to tag along, but this time she didn't. By midnight, she still wasn't back. I stared at the clock, thinking about the photo her friend Sarah had posted on Instagram earlier. It was a group shot of everyone smiling at the camera. Elena's expression was neutral, but her eyes were fixed on the man standing next to her. The caption read, "So happy to have Julian back in the city. He and I have the exact same eyes." Mike had told me he was the one she'd never been able to have, and Elena hadn't mentioned a word about him being there tonight. At 2 a.m., I heard her come in. In the silence of the night, every sound was amplified. I heard the sliding door to the balcony open. Half an hour later, she hit the shower. 10 minutes after that, she crept into the bedroom. She leaned down and kissed my forehead, her breath a mix of cigarettes and mint. She started smoking again. When she was first chasing me, I told her I didn't like dating smokers, so Elena quit cold turkey. I remember the first time she introduced me to her friends. One of them joked, "Elena's been a pack-a-day girl for 10 years. You're the first person who actually got her to stop." I had looked at Elena and asked, "Really? Then who was the first person who made you start?" Elena didn't answer. She just pulled me closer. Her friend laughed it off. "Look at you, Elena, robbing the cradle. No wonder you kept him hidden for so long." Elena just smiled and whispered something sweet in my ear. That night, she was the only one who got drunk. By the end of the night, she was leaning her whole weight against me, whispering into my ear, "Leo, I'm so happy." I was the person who made her quit smoking, but someone else just made her start again. Elena lay on the other side of the bed, her back to me. She didn't pull me into her arms like she usually did. That night, even though we were in the same bed, we were miles apart, and neither of us slept a wink. When I woke up the next morning, the other side of the bed was empty. I heard noise in the kitchen and found Elena wearing the matching pajama set we'd bought together. With an apron on and a spatula in her hand, she looked domestic and soft. I watched her in silence until she turned to grab a bowl and saw me. "Why didn't you say anything? Go wash up. Breakfast is almost ready." I didn't move. She turned off the stove and walked over to take my hand. "What's wrong? Still half asleep?" She was as attentive and gentle as ever. The smell of smoke was gone. I shook my head. "It's nothing. Thanks for breakfast. I'll go get ready." She didn't let go. She leaned in for a kiss. "My payment for the cooking," she teased. I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection, telling myself not to overthink it. Even if her white moonlight was back, I was the one she was with. I had to trust her. I had to trust us. But at the table, the sautéed greens were incredibly salty. I frowned as soon as I tasted them. "What is it?" she asked. I set the greens on the edge of my plate. "Way too much salt. Elena took a bite, immediately spit it out, and took the plate away. Sorry, I must have been distracted. I'll make something else. She's a great cook. This was a dish she made all the time. Despite her calm exterior, Julian's return had clearly rattled her. The composure I tried to build in the bathroom began to crumble. I tried to sound casual, but it came out like an interrogation. So, was it just Sarah and the usual crew last night? Elena reflexively said, yes, but she realized her mistake instantly. She knew I could see Sarah's posts. A flash of panic crossed her face. Seeing that split second of guilt made my heart sink even further. Elena sat back down and stopped lying. There was one more person. Julian is back. The guy from college I told you about. The one that got away. I finished for her. She winced slightly. It's not what you think. I just looked at her. The silence stretched between us until her phone rang. The caller ID said Sarah. Elena looked at it but didn't pick up. She pressed the side button to silence it. I knew she was thinking. We'd had arguments before, but we were both the type to communicate. We never let things fester overnight. The phone rang again. He declined it without looking. Then it rang a third time. Just answer it, I said. Maybe Sarah has an emergency. She picked up. Within seconds, her face went pale. Which hospital? She demanded. She was already walking toward the bedroom while on the phone. Less than a minute later, she was dressed and grabbing her keys. As she rushed past the dining room, she seemed to realize I was still sitting there. Julian collapsed. He's in the ER. I have to go see him. We'll talk when I get back, okay? Before I could even respond, she was out the door. The salty greens on the table were cold. I stood up and scraped them into the trash. Elena didn't come home that night. The next day was Sunday. There were no texts from her. On a whim, I decided to deep clean the apartment. That was when I realized how much of her was in my space. In the bathroom, her skincare products were lined up next to my face wash. In the closet, her dresses hung right next to my suits. On the coffee table was a half-finished Lego set she'd been working on the last time she was over. We didn't officially live together, but our lives were completely intertwined. When we first started dating, Elena had asked me several times to move into her place. I had refused. That's your house, I'd told her. If we ever get into a huge fight, I'd have to go cry on the sidewalk. She had laughed at me. If anyone's crying on the sidewalk, it'll be me. I'd never kick you out. I'd stuck to my guns. Couples need their own space. She just patted my shoulder. You're something else, Leo. Now I was glad for that decision. I had my own home to be in, even if it was just a rental. At 8 p.m., Elena finally returned. I was sitting on the floor, finishing her Lego set. I looked up at her. She looked exhausted, her face gaunt. I turned my attention back to the Lego pieces. Neither of us spoke first. She went into the bathroom to shower, but when she came out, she wasn't wearing her pajamas. I realized then she wasn't staying the night. She sat down across from me at the coffee table and silently began handing me pieces. 1, 2, 3. Julian has cancer, she said. My hand froze. I sat in silence as she told the story. Apparently, Julian had moved abroad years ago to get treatment. He had rejected her back then because he didn't know how long he had to live. He didn't want to burden her, so he lied and pushed her away. Now, he was back because his treatment had shown some progress, and he could finish the rest of it here in the States. Most importantly, he didn't want to die with regrets. When he collapsed last night, he couldn't hide the truth anymore. Elena didn't say what Julian's regret was. As she spoke, she never looked me in the eye. Her voice was full of pity for another man and the lingering melancholy of a lost love that turned out to be a misunderstanding. Honestly, I felt lost. I could feel her heart drifting away. She had clearly spent the last 48 hours at the hospital with him. She had come here tonight because she had an agenda. So what's the plan? I asked. Elena was quiet for a long time. Finally, she looked up. Can you promise me you won't overthink this or get angry? Just tell me. The hospitals here in the city are the best. Julian doesn't have a permanent place to stay yet. I want him to stay at my place for a while. How long is a while? She seemed to be doing the math. The doctor wants to monitor him for at least a month. He needs to stay in the city. And if he needs more monitoring after that month. She didn't answer. Where are you going to stay? I asked. He's sick, Leo. He needs someone to look after him. Are you going to live with him? Do you even remember that you have a boyfriend? The anger finally bubbled up, and my voice turned sharp. Elena frowned, looking at me like I was being a difficult child. Leo, he's a patient. Don't be weird about this, okay? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm being weird. Does he not have parents? Family? You guys have a whole squad of friends here. At the very least, he could hire a nurse and stay in a hotel. Why does it have to be your house? Why do you have to be the one taking care of him? Elena stared at the Legos, speechless. It was another long, suffocating silence. I knew this silence. Whenever she couldn't refute my point but didn't agree with me, she just stopped talking. To her, it wasn't about right or wrong. It was just a stalemate. I expected to explode, but instead, I felt a strange, hollow calm, like the quiet after a fire has burned itself out. So you've already decided, I said calmly. You didn't come here to talk it over with me. You came here to notify me. You aren't looking for my input as your boyfriend. Elena looked weary. I thought you'd understand, like you always do. I used to understand. I understood when she told me about her past. Everyone has a past. Besides, she'd dated people between Julian and me. I thought she had truly moved on from that college heartbreak. But now the past and the present were a tangled mess. How was I supposed to understand that? Finally, Elena stood up. It's just for a month. I know where my heart is. It's you I love. But is she really? The next day was a Monday. I expected to be distracted at work, but ironically, I barely thought about her. For me, that was abnormal. I'm the kind of person who loves to share everything in a relationship. Usually, our text thread has hundreds of messages a day, everything from deep talks about our families to what we had for lunch. Suddenly, the desire to share anything with her was gone. I didn't even check my phone all day. When I finally did, her chat was pinned at the top with 3 unread messages. The first was from the morning, good morning. The second was from noon, make sure you eat lunch. The third was from 30 minutes ago, are you working late tonight? I locked my phone without replying. For the rest of the week, she texted every day like clockwork, asking what I was up to. I read them all and replied to none. By Friday afternoon, her car was parked outside my office building. I tried to ignore it, but she saw me and a coworker nudged me. Hey, you're going the wrong way. Your girl is waiting for you over there. I had to say goodbye to my coworker and walk over to her car. What are you doing here? She gave me a gentle smile, acting as if I hadn't been ghosting her for days. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. I want to take you to dinner tonight. I found this new spot I think you'll love. I'd been so buried in work, I'd completely forgotten about Valentine's Day. After a 5-day grind, the last thing I wanted to do was deal with Friday night traffic and wait in line for a table. I'm tired. Let's just do it tomorrow. Isn't that when people actually celebrate? Elena hesitated. Okay, I'll just drop you home then. I could tell she wanted to say something, but I wasn't in the mood. I closed my eyes and leaned back against the headrest. We didn't say a word the whole way. It wasn't until we were standing in front of my door that she finally spoke. Julian wants to go to Universal Studios tomorrow. He already bought the tickets. Can we push our dinner to Sunday instead? My hand froze on the keypad. I turned to look at her. The hallway light flickered and died. Was she serious? Was she actually trying to manage both of us on a schedule? Don't worry about it, I said, finishing my code. Elena tried to follow me inside, her voice becoming apologetic and sweet. I'll cook for you tonight then. I held the door half closed, blocking her way. I said don't worry about it. She put her hand on the door, meeting my eyes. Her tone dropped. What are you doing, Leo? Why are you being like this? I was exhausted. I had planned on having a real talk with her over dinner tomorrow, but now I didn't even want to speak. I'm not being anything. We both need some space to think about whether this relationship is even worth continuing. Elena's eyes went red, and then she flared up in frustration. Are you serious? We can eat dinner anytime. Do you really have to pick a fight over a sick man? I used to think we were perfectly in sync, but now I realized the honeymoon phase had just been a very long mask. She didn't know me at all. Every time it involves him, you make the decision first and then tell me later. What am I supposed to say to that? His needs are your top priority, and I'm just someone you squeeze into your schedule to check a box. And when I'm not okay with it, you pull the moral high ground card and act like I'm a monster for not catering to a patient. I'm not competing with him. Elena. I'm reacting to your attitude and your choices. I pointed toward the elevator. Just go. I have nothing left to say to you. She took a jagged breath and eventually turned around. We didn't speak for 2 weeks. She stopped texting, and I unpinned her on WhatsApp. I didn't expect Sarah to show up at my door. Got a minute? We need to talk. We sat down at a coffee shop, and Sarah got straight to the point. Are things bad between you and Elena? She told you that? My first reaction was annoyance. I don't like airing my relationship drama. Sarah explained. We can all see it. We had to pry it out of her. She took a sip of her coffee and gave me a grave look. Look, it's not what you think. Those of us who were there in college, we know the whole story. I let her talk. She and Julian started out as rivals. They couldn't stand each other. But then they were paired up for a competition, and they had the same friends. Eventually, they became inseparable. They were like a classic, will they, won't they couple. When they suddenly stopped talking, we were all confused. It turned out Julian had rejected her. It was brutal. It broke them both. Elena started smoking back then. I let out a small, bitter laugh. I should have known. When she introduced you to us and told us she quit for you, we really thought you were the one. Julian's sick, Leo. They both have a lot of baggage and regrets, but it's just that, regret. She's helping him as a friend. There's nothing going on between them. The coffee was getting cold. If they have a whole group of friends, why does it have to be Elena? Sarah adopted a condescending older sister tone. Julian is having major surgery in a week. It's a 50-50 shot. You should be the bigger person here, Leo. In their eyes. Because Julian was sick, I was supposed to be the noble boyfriend who let his woman play nurse to her first love. Does he even know she has a boyfriend? I asked. Sarah looked away. Knowing him, if he knew, he wouldn't let her help. So you're all lying to him? He's about to go under the knife. Sarah said, as if it were obvious. Why stir up drama and stress him out? That night of the reunion, they didn't know he was sick yet. Everyone in that photo knew Elena was dating me, and not one person said a word. They were planning on hiding it from the start. If it's so innocent, why would it stress him out? Deep down, you and Elena both know this is crossing a line. Sarah looked insulted. Elena was right. You're way too intense. Of all Elena's friends, I like Sarah the most. But now she felt like a total stranger. I stood up. The conversation was over. I walked out of the coffee shop, pulled out my phone, and scrolled down to Elena's name. Come on my place sometime and get your stuff. She didn't reply for a long time. I wandered aimlessly through the city. I passed a boutique window with a beautiful dress in it, which reminded me of the time Elena said she wanted to marry me. It was our 2nd anniversary. We were both a little tipsy, and she had asked, half joking, if I proposed to you one day, would you say yes? I'd looked into her eyes and said, I'll tell you when the day comes. She'd kissed me and said, just don't run away when I do. At the time, I wouldn't have minded marrying her. Now the memory just felt heavy. I realized I'd been standing in front of the window too long. I was about to turn away when I saw a familiar silhouette inside the store. It was Elena, the woman who hadn't replied to my text. And standing next to her in a sharp tailored suit was Julian. Under the boutique lights, they looked like the perfect couple. Elena was looking up at him, talking, her face full of that gentle warmth I knew so well. My mind went blank. The world went silent. She happened to glance toward the window and caught my eye. Her smile died instantly. Before Julian could follow her gaze, she stepped in front of him, blocking his view of me. A sales associate brought over another garment and led Julian toward the fitting rooms. Elena rushed out of the store. She reached out to grab my hand, her voice trembling. It's not what it looks like. I pulled back. And what does it look like? Her face flushed as she scrambled for an explanation. Julian's surgery is next week. He might not make it. He told me he's never worn a real designer suit. He didn't want to die without knowing what it felt like. I'm just here to help him pick one out. I laughed. What's next? He says he's never been married. So you go to City Hall with him? You guys have so many regrets and unfinished business. Why don't you just marry him and fix all of it at once? Elena, I said, looking her dead in the eye, we're done. No. She stepped toward me, grabbing my arm. Just give me 1 week. After the surgery, after I help him with his bucket list, everything will go back to the way it was. I promise. People on the sidewalk were starting to stare. I didn't have the energy for a scene. Elena, you aren't the same person anymore. Or maybe I just never knew the real you. There's no going back. She wouldn't let go. I looked past her into the store. Julian had stepped out in a new tuxedo. He's out, I said quietly. If you don't let go, your white moonlight is going to see us. Her hand dropped instantly. I gave her a cold smile and walked away. She didn't follow me. When I got home, I packed every single thing of hers into boxes, including the Lego set I'd finished for her. I called a courier to deliver it to her apartment. Then I went to sleep. The next day at work, I walked into my boss's office and told him I'd take the Chicago assignment. The company had wanted to send me there a month ago to launch a new branch. The plan was for me to spend a year there and then move back to New York as a director. I'd hesitated because of Elena. Now I was a free agent. I broke my lease, blocked Elena and her friends on everything, and on the day of Julian's surgery, I boarded a plane to Chicago. I thought I'd be devastated, but the sheer volume of work kept me from sinking. I didn't have time to be sad. It wasn't until 6 months later, when Elena suddenly appeared outside my Chicago office, that I realized I had almost entirely forgotten she existed. It wasn't that surprising she found me. She used to pick me up from a New York office all the time. Plenty of people knew her. All she had to do was ask around. I had no interest in a reunion. I pulled out my keys and headed toward the parking garage. My promotion hadn't officially kicked in yet, but the company had given me a raise and was paying for my apartment. I bought myself a new car. My life was moving up. I had no reason. I want to look back, but Elena wouldn't move. She blocked my path, and my first instinct was just pure annoyance. Move it, Elena. You're in my way. She flinched at my tone. Leo, can we please just talk? We're broken up. There's nothing to talk about. I never agreed to the breakup, she said stubbornly. I laughed. You didn't ask for my permission to move an ex into your house either. The breakup happened, Elena. Coming all the way here is just embarrassing. Just give me a chance to make it up to you, she pleaded. Her eyes were red. I remembered when we first started dating, and she'd made me mad once. She'd stood at my door with that same about-to-cry look, and I'd softened. Now her tears just irritated me. Make it up to me? Are you addicted to making things up to people? You finished making it up to your first love, so now you're moving on to your ex. I brushed past her and got into my car. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing there looking defeated. The powerful, confident woman I'd once loved was gone. I felt nothing. I thought my stance was clear, but for the next few days, she was there every evening. I didn't know how she had this much free time, but she was becoming a nuisance. On Friday, I finally walked over to her. Her face lit up with hope. Let's talk, I said, my voice cold. I drove us down to the riverfront. When I first moved to Chicago, I used to come here to clear my head. On the drive over, Elena tried to make small talk, but I gave her nothing but one-word answers. She eventually went quiet. She knew this wasn't going to be the romantic reconciliation she'd imagined. The Riverwalk was full of people, couples, families, joggers. The lively atmosphere made the silence in the car feel even heavier. I had once seen a future with this woman. She had been the one to break it. How was his surgery? I asked, breaking the silence. Elena grabbed the opening. It was a success. He moved back abroad a week ago. I was actually surprised. I thought you two would end up together. She looked at me strangely. You sound like you wanted us to. I shrugged. Whether you're together or not doesn't affect my life anymore. You've changed, she said softly. People do. You did too. Julian is gone now, Leo. The thing that was between us is gone. Can't we just start over? She sounded like a child who couldn't understand why they weren't getting their way. I sighed. The problem was never him, Elena. I told you that. It was your choices and your attitude. But honestly, none of that matters now. Why doesn't it matter? Because I don't love you anymore. The blood drained from her face. We were together for years. You could just throw it all away like it was nothing? You have no feelings left at all. I nodded, then shook my head. I can't deny what we had, and I believe you really did love me once. I thought about the past and smiled. You know, on our second anniversary, if you had actually proposed, I would have said yes on the spot. I trusted you completely. That's a rare thing for me. My smile faded, but you were the one who broke that trust. It started the night you lied about the reunion. From that moment, Your heart started drifting, and I started pulling away piece by piece. You moving him in, going to Universal on Valentine's Day, the tuxedo fitting, those things just made me move faster. I know you had regrets from your past. Whether you wanted to fix them or get back with him, that was your choice to make. But you can't expect me to just sit around and wait while you figure out where you belong. Elena was smart. She knew exactly what I was saying. Can we just forget the past and start over? I don't trust you anymore. It actually hurt a little to say that. I wasn't sad about the relationship ending. I was sad that the version of me who trusted people that much was gone. Do you hate me? She asked. The question caught me off guard. No, hate is a strong emotion. It keeps you tied to someone. I don't want that. I don't hate you, and I don't love you. I'm just done. Elena gave a bitter laugh. I think I'd rather you hated me. We sat in silence for a while longer. I checked my watch. It's late. I need to get home. You should call an Uber. That night, I slept soundly. Elena didn't show up at the office again. Work got busier. The Chicago market launch was a massive success. What was supposed to take a year only took 6 months. The company moved me back to New York and kept their word. I was officially a director. I bought my own place and a car. I finally had a home that was truly mine. New York is a big city. Even though we were in the same town, I didn't see Elena for a long time. It wasn't until a rainy afternoon in the middle of summer that we crossed paths again. A car rear-ended me, and Elena happened to be driving by. The other driver was at fault, and the cops handled it quickly, but my car had to be towed. It was pouring, Ubers were impossible to find, and I had a high-stakes meeting with a new partner. This project was my baby, and I couldn't be late. When Elena pulled over and offered me a ride, I hesitated for 2 seconds before getting in. She looked older, more settled. When did you get back to the city? She asked. I opened my laptop on my lap to do one last check of the proposal. Earlier this year. Still at the same firm. Yeah, I said, not looking up. She seemed to realize I wasn't interested in talking, so she stayed quiet. She put on some soft jazz, and the only sound was the clicking of my keyboard. Eventually, she pulled up to the curb. We're here. Thanks for the lift, I said. She looked like she wanted to say something, but I was already out the door. The meeting was intense. We were fighting over every percentage point. The other company's lead, a woman named Maya, was sharp as a tack. She didn't give an inch. It was the kind of intellectual sparring I lived for. 2 hours later, we shook hands on a deal. Maya dropped the Ice Queen act as we walked out. You're a hell of a negotiator, Leo. Your firm is lucky to have you. I laughed. It was the first time she'd sounded human all day. We were chatting and laughing as we walked out. The lobby. Leo, I turned around. It was Elena. Why was she still here? It was still pouring. She walked toward us under her umbrella, and I noticed Maya's smile vanish. There was an immediate strange tension between the two women. Are you finished? Let's go, Elena said softly. I was confused. No thanks. I'll just catch a cab back to my office. Elena's face tightened. It was awkward. Maya didn't leave, and Elena wouldn't move. We were just standing there in the rain like characters in a bad movie. Employees walking by were definitely gossiping. I sighed. Maya, thanks again. Let's keep in touch about the next steps. Maya gave a curt nod, but stayed put. I'm not in a rush. I'll wait with you until your ride gets here. I checked my phone. The Uber app said, no cars available. Elena spoke up again. It's raining too hard for a cab. Just get in. I'm heading toward your office anyway. I realized if I didn't leave, this weird standoff was going to continue indefinitely. I said goodbye to Maya and got into Elena's car. I didn't open my laptop this time. I just stared at the rain on the window. Congratulations on the promotion, Elena said. Thanks. Do you have to be this distant? She asked, sounding frustrated. I didn't answer. She gripped the steering wheel. That Maya woman, she likes you. She's a business partner, Elena. Don't start. I'm not starting anything. It's a woman's intuition. She hit the steering wheel in frustration. Seeing you laugh with her drove me crazy. If she can have a chance with you, why can't I? I felt my temper rising. First of all, she and I are strictly professional. Second of all, even if we weren't, it has nothing to do with you. We hit a red light. She turned to me. Leo, we ran into each other today for a reason. It means it's not over. Give me a chance to win you back. Let me compete with her. Please. I was beyond words. You're delusional. You need professional help. I'm serious. I love you. I didn't want to be cruel, but she wouldn't listen to anything else. You love me, Elena? It's been over a year. You were fine without me. If we hadn't bumped into each other today, we probably would have never spoken again. You don't love me. You see that I'm doing better than I was, and your ego can't handle it. This isn't love, it's just pride. And it's not fair to whoever you date next. I don't want anyone else, she whispered. I want to start over. The light turned green. Life isn't a movie, Elena. Not everything can be fixed. We both need to move on. She drove me the rest of the way in silence. When she pulled up to my building,